Philadelphia has it.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to DSM pregame live, streaming to you exclusively here on DSM Media's YouTube channel. Guys, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications for every single time we are live here on the channel. I am one half of your host, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. To my right, my co-host, Scotty. You can find him as well at Scotty Drown. And you check our platform out as a whole and all of our great content at DSM_media. Sixers, Mavs, second half of a back-to-back for the Philadelphia 76ers tonight, Scotty, as they're 2-2 out of the All-Star break. We're going to get into keys to victory, goal of the game, best bets, all that fun stuff for tonight's matchup as they're on primetime TNT in Dallas. Sure. But before we get into that, let's recap last night's win in Miami over the Heat. As I said to you before the show, classic, right? Lose at home to the same team with Joel Embiid, go on the road 2 days later, win without Joel Embiid. But I think last night, now, as you know, I was not on pregame with you. I was at the Flyers game. Free tickets. Flyers suck, but not going to pass up great free tickets. So you handled it as always. But it was a big win for me as a Sixers fan because I think it calmed everything down for the time being, at least for 24 hours, right? You lose 2 in a row to Boston, to Miami at home, and the wheels start to fall off, right? And here comes all the negativity. You get that win in big fashion, mind you. They blew the doors off of the Heat on the road last night. Without Joel, now Joel, I know he's on the injury report, probable for tonight. I think that was load management, back-to-back. What game do you want to play him in, right? Mm-hmm. Big win for me because it calms everything down. They're 2-2 so far versus this very difficult schedule.
Yeah, no, it was a great win, and I know I deemed this game as a must win last night. I know we talk about it all the time. There's no such thing, but it was a must win, like you said, to turn the tide and kind of calm everybody down. Of course, the Sixers and within their organization, maybe they weren't freaking out. Most likely they weren't, right? It's a 1 game out of 82. Right. They take 1 game at a time, I would hope.
Something us fans do a little more.
But it's also the fact that those 2 articles were released yesterday regarding PJ Tucker and James Harden. And it's just like, it was piling on us, right? And that's what the media loves to do. They wait until the Sixers lose 2 heartbreakers, and all of a sudden it's Harden back to Houston and PJ back to Miami. But I loved it because it settled the storm. The one thing about the Embiid, and I questioned it last night, him sitting out. It is what it is. They won the game. I'm not going to sit here and look back on it harshly, right? Why sit him out against Miami when you could play him last night? I get it. It's a back-to-back. You could have played him last night and then have 2 nights in between from when you play Milwaukee on Saturday. Mm-hmm. So that was my only thing. Do they value the win again? Right. Maybe it's one of those things where you think you can beat the Heat without him rather than beat the Mavs without him. But I would look at it the complete opposite way. But that was really, my only questioning regarding him and the load management. You look at this game, they did everything that we asked them to do in the first matchup, right? When we talked about keys to victory on Monday, they did everything that they were supposed to do in that matchup, except in this game yesterday. Yeah. They controlled the turnovers. They won the turnover battle. They won the rebounding battle. They won the offensive rebounding battle, to be even more specific. And they won the 3-point battle. I mean, you saw Miami. I think now that we can look back at it, it looks like a blip, right? It looks like an outlier as far as what Miami did on Monday. But the only reason I think it hit so hard after that loss is because it looked very similar to the playoffs in the way we lost that way. But what has kind of happened with the Miami Heat this year, and I don't want to get into it too much, Max Strus and Gabe Vincent have just come back down to earth this season. Right. That's what it is. You saw it in this last game. They weren't shooting the 3 ball. They didn't make 15 threes in this one. That was more realistic to what they've looked like this season. So all around, you see Tobias bounce back. That's something we can talk about getting into tonight's game.
Much needed.
But, it begs the question, why does it take Embiid being out? Why does it take, for you to lose 2 games in a row for you guys to open your eyes? We've had the disappointments already. We don't need motivation, right? We have the motivation needed. So that is my only question about last night's win, but I will take it every day. And twice on what was yesterday, Wednesdays.
Wednesday, twice on Wednesdays.
Twice on Wednesday. So no, I'm happy about the win. They did everything that I could have asked for, and we saw some flexible lineups from Doc, and I think that's what was talked about the most throughout the night, honestly.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Doc, for whatever reason, maybe just because when you take away a top 3, top 5 talent like Joel Embiid off the floor, and you're able to pull away with a victory, it makes the coaching performance look that much better. But Doc has done one hell of a job in games without Embiid. That's the weird part, right?
Yeah.
Why is it that in games without Embiid for the whole 48, we look great. We win a lot of them. But in the small minute windows with him off the floor in games he plays, we get ran off the floor in those windows. It doesn't correlate. It doesn't make sense. I want to go back to the injury, though. Just be transparent, Sixers. Be transparent. Yeah. I saw your tweet, Scotty, and I 100% agree with you. Listen, Joel's going to miss games down the stretch here, right? You want him healthy for the playoffs. It's a back-to-back. I understand. But to your point about the All-Star break, he was questionable and then missed last night because of left foot soreness. Is that the case, or is it load management? Because if it's actual left foot soreness, my man should have never been playing in the All-Star game, like you pointed out, Scotty.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
So
if it's actual left foot soreness, it's on him and the Sixers for playing in that meaningless, stupid-ass game last week.
Yep.
Or if it's load management, just tell me he's out tonight. He's off. He's got the day off because they play tomorrow.
It's not something that you have to report to the NBA. It's just something you could give to media around Philadelphia. Like, hey, this is just a rest night. Like, that was my big thing. And I thought about deleting the tweet because I don't want it to seem like I'm just going in on Embiid or being harsh.
But you're correct. If it's actually his foot, which was the injury prior to the break, then he should have never been playing in that meaningless game. Which he tore up, by the way. His foot was fine that night.
Right. There we go. That's my issue too. Because it's not just that you played in that game and took a night off in the All-Star game. Like,
you were
some
top
players
3 player in the game.
But you were a top 3 player in that game. Like, you went all out to show the talent. So I don't know. It didn't rub me the right way last night.
Just be transparent.
A game where I think, we just lost 2 in gut-wrenching fashion. We're on the road in Miami. You don't want to drop 2 in a row.
That's a big point. In hindsight, now looking back, we can breathe and give a sigh of relief because they won. It's like, oh, okay, good. But to your point, if you lose that game, you just lost 3 in a row, and now you're losing everybody's attention again.
Yeah, exactly. And let me ask you this, and maybe this is kind of where we can close it with that game.
Sure.
But do you think that there was anything to it as far as looking at specifically Embiid off the floor in games, right? So that game against Miami, I think it was very clear that when Embiid stepped off the floor, everything went to shit, right? Especially against the Celtics, the numbers were ridiculous. But was that a test to the team? Is that Doc Rivers maybe saying hey, we got a back-to-back tonight. We just lost 2 straight. We're going to give Embiid some rest tonight so you guys can figure out what the hell you guys got going on. Do you think there's anything of that sorts to fit into it? And I know it's all speculative, but
it's definitely. I don't think it was a clear message, and I don't think there was any conversation behind it.
Just that.
But I think it was probably it was an opportunity, right? We talk about those opportunities when people come. Matisse Thybulle hits multiple threes again last night. Everyone's up in arms about the trade now, and why couldn't he do that here? And F Doc, when he had opportunities here, he wasn't knocking down those threes.
Exactly,
so last night, if you're Doc Rivers without Joel Embiid, you lose 2 straight. Paul Reed, PJ Tucker, Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
They stepped up. And before we wrap this up, I do have to bring up the Tyrese Maxey point, man. I talked to you about it. Now, he did start last night, correct?
Yeah, he did.
So he starts last night, different role. They go to 3 guards. I get it. But once again, Scotty, it's what you and I were talking about pre-show. Why is there a different side of Tyrese Maxey with Joel Embiid off the floor versus when they're playing together?
And, we discussed this before the show. It's something that just doesn't click in my head. I get it. It does click. I get it from a standpoint of Embiid's in the game. I got to get him the ball. He's the best player on our team, right? Let's watch him cook. But, it just shouldn't be like that. And I know, obviously,
granted, Maxey was great Monday night as well. Like he scored like 23 off the bench. So
yeah, and mind you, it was partly after Embiid says that to him. Be yourself, be confident, be aggressive. So maybe that ultimately helped him click, and maybe now he's moved on, and maybe he can do it with Embiid tonight. But it has shown a trend over the first 3 seasons we've had with Maxey. Even what was that his rookie season when he did that against Denver when all those players were out?
Yeah.
So COVID. It's like, the trend is there when Embiid's off the floor. Maxey seems to just skyrocket as far as what he does on there. But what I would ultimately say, and I'm sure they've said this to him, and Embiid even put it out in the public that he said it to him, it shouldn't matter if Embiid's on the court or not. Do the exact same thing. And I think that goes for every single one of these guys, man. You talked about Tobias. Paul Reed's another guy tonight. If he gets some run tonight, which I would expect he would after what he did last night, I want to see it with you coming off the bench for Embiid. Like, why is it that you have a 16 and 14 game, but Embiid doesn't play in that game? Nothing changed. PJ Tucker started. You came in as a backup center. So why is that? I'm just curious. I'm curious to see if Paul Reed plays well tonight. But the Tyrese Maxey thing, maybe it was something with the injury where he lost a bit of confidence, because we saw him before. He was letting it fly. I just hope that it's clicked to him again and he sees what he can do. And then ultimately that allows him to be himself on the court, because that's what we need, man. Embiid said it perfectly. We need Maxey to be him in order for us to get anywhere in the playoffs. Otherwise, we're going nowhere. So hopefully it clicked for him.
Yes, sir. All right, let's get into tonight's matchup. With that win over the Heat last night, the Sixers do get to the 40 win mark. They're 40-21 on the year, third in the Eastern Conference, taking on the Dallas Mavericks. They're 32-31, 7 seed in the West so far. Very similar to that first matchup with Miami coming in, Scotty. The Sixers obviously dropped 2 in a row, so they are 3-2 in their last 5. Facing another team that is 1-4 in their last 5. The Mavs' sole win coming against the San Antonio Spurs on February 23rd. Obviously, they had that ridiculous lead against the Los Angeles Lakers. What was that, last Sunday? And LeBron and company storm back. They lose that game. They lose to the Pacers at home on February 28th. So, listen, Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, it's scary. I'm sitting here wondering and questioning how the Sixers match up and guard this backcourt tonight. However, the Mavs have an issue on the defensive end. The Mavs have an issue on the glass. The Mavs have an issue with the others. I'm looking for the Sixers offense to show up, especially if Joel Embiid's in the starting lineup tonight, and show up in a big way, my man. What are you looking at?
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. The Mavericks, they obviously have talent, right? They have talent, and obviously picking up Kyrie Irving, that kind of changes the landscape of their team. But I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around why the Sixers are underdogs in this game. I really am. I'm really having a hard time. I feel like the sports books are like messing with me right now, because Sixers are sitting at plus 145 to win this game. They're 2.5-point underdogs. I get they're on the road. I get it's on the tail end of a back-to-back. Embiid didn't play last night. So, like, the back-to-back really, I just feel like it shouldn't even factor in almost. I guess travel and stuff like that, you have to factor it in a bit. But I don't see the Sixers laying off.
By the way, the line's 3.5 now.
3.5 now. Interesting, man. And the thing about the Sixers that I find interesting with this the way this line is laid, the Sixers travel, right? And defense travels. They're the number 3 defensive team in the NBA. That travels. Offense, they could have an off night. They could shoot very poorly from the field, but defense travels. So I don't know. That line confused me. And just to take it a step further, they're 1-5 since Luka and Kyrie have been together. So 1-4 in their last 5, but 1-5 as a whole since Kyrie and Luka have been on the court together. So right now it's kind of not working. And so what I would ask you, tonight as we look at these matchups, not only who's going to guard Kyrie and Luka, we know that's going to be a tough task, and that's my first key to victory here tonight. Contain those two, make other guys beat you. Tim Hardaway Jr.'s, Reggie Bullocks of the world. But who are they matching up with on defense?
Yeah.
Like Luka, we know his deficiencies. He gets treated similarly to Harden, I feel, as far as on the defensive end. Has quick hands, but just not the quickest feet. And then on the other side, you have Kyrie Irving, who he's just undersized. He can guard when he wants to. Is he going to step up to the plate and put the straps on tonight? So that's where I'm looking at the Dallas Mavericks. They traded away a Dorial Finney-Smith, who was kind of their 3-and-D guy, right? Who fills that role? Tim Hardaway Jr. is not a guy known for defense. Reggie Bullock, he's an all right defender, right? But I'm wondering where their defense comes from tonight, Dylan, and that's my other key to victory. Dominate in the paint tonight. I think they should live in the paint. There's no defensive anchor on the other side of the ball there when you're talking about the Dallas Mavericks. Not only Embiid dominating the paint, which he should tonight, but even Maxey, Harden, getting in the paint, get into the free throw line, and just driving the lane. I see no reason why they shouldn't get in there early and often. But how are you feeling about this matchup nonetheless?
I'm looking at this matchup, and you mentioned Kyrie and Luka on the defensive end. I texted you that as a joke earlier when we're looking at best bets. They can't stop anybody, but they can score, obviously, with the best in the league. Absolutely. But I honestly think post All-Star break, and even if you go to the Cavs game right before the All-Star break, this stretch run that we're on right now is leading up to this kind of matchup. The Sixers are playing playoff-esque basketball over the last 5. You look at these scores, their scoring numbers are down. Last night was the first time they eclipsed 118 since before the All-Star break. 110 against Memphis, 110 to 107 against Boston, 101 to 99 against Miami, right? 110 to 105 against Memphis. Playoff basketball, slower games, better defense. Defense does travel. And while I understand that Luka and Kyrie, could put up major numbers tonight, I don't know who they stop. And I think the Sixers can get a few more stops than Dallas tonight. But I agree with you, man. Live in the paint. And I think on the glass kind of stays with that trend, right? We mentioned before the Miami game. Listen, one of our keys to victory seems to always be rebound. It's a struggle for the Sixers.
Yep.
The Mavs aren't. I think Mavs are
they're the worst.
30th or the worst.
They're the worst
in the entire association. So slight advantage to the Sixers in an area they don't normally have the advantage, right? So I'm looking for the Sixers to live in the paint tonight. And then I would just ask you kind of what you would do guarding these two. How would you roll with that? Because you would assume that Melton probably gets Kyrie, right? He's too small. Yeah. He's too small to play on Luka.
Yeah,
you would assume that. Kyrie. What are you doing with Luka? Is it Tobias? PJ's way too slow to guard.
Yeah, not for a full night, at least.
Are you seeing more Daniel House again? Are you seeing more Jalen McDaniels again? What are you looking at tonight against Luka Doncic?
It's a great question, and what I'm doing right now, I'm actually just looking at the last few games, the Mavericks lineups that they run with, like their starting lineup. But off the top of my head, I'm going DeAnthony Melton on Kyrie for sure. That's a no-brainer for me. But the interesting one is Luka. I would probably start with Tobias on him, see what that looks like. Go from there, see if Tobias can keep himself out of foul trouble guarding him. But I think you throw a bunch of different looks at him, quite honestly. You could see times where, you throw PJ on him for just a few possessions, right? It's maybe 3 possessions in a row you throw PJ on him and then move Tobias back over to him or bring Jalen McDaniels. That is a guy I would try on him tonight. The length, the quickness, the athleticism, maybe that can give Luka some trouble. We've seen guys like Ben Simmons be able to do a good job on Luka. Comparable size. I'm not saying that McDaniels has the IQ that Ben Simmons does on the defensive end of the ball, at least at that time. Let me put it that way. But nonetheless, he does have similar size. He's 6'9". He's got really long arms. He's athletic. He can stay in front of guys. So maybe that's a guy you can try. I guess I'll throw your question back to you because I'm not sure how I would answer it because, the talk last night was with Doc, and he basically said he tried House over Niang because of the matchups, right? He just didn't feel that there was anybody that Niang could guard on the Miami side. Mm-hmm. Is there anybody, and I'm going to read you the starting lineup here. So we have Justin Holiday starting at small forward. We have Reggie Bullock. Well, I guess they're forwards, not small forwards.
Right.
Reggie Bullock and Justin Holiday. Then we have Dwight Powell at center. We have Kyrie Irving and then Luka Doncic. Then you have one of the Morris. I believe that's Marquise Morris. Marcus Morris is on the Clippers.
Right.
Looks like Maxi Kleber is back, but he's out tonight, so he shouldn't be in. Christian Wood, Tim Hardaway Jr., and then Josh Green. So is there anybody in there that I would trust George Niang to guard? I think that's the question that we have to ask ourselves each and every night when we're talking about this rotation. Maybe a Maxi Kleber, right? If he was playing, he's not too quick of a guy.
Right.
Marquise Morris, he's not a world beater either. But I don't know. At that point, after what you saw last game, wouldn't you just be inclined to keep trying Daniel House? I don't know how you feel about that.
I just think in regular season, at least, so you can kind of get a better idea of what you're rolling into playoff matchups with. I don't understand why there's no role for both. I don't understand why you cannot throw Niang out at first and see if you can get him cooking from beyond the arc. And if Niang goes 0 for 2 and he's getting beat on the defensive floor, try the defensive stopper, try the more athletic wing. I don't understand why it's one way or the other, where Niang's been struggling. He plays 0 minutes. House hasn't played in 4 weeks. He plays 17 minutes. Why does it have to be one or the other? I understand guys need to find roles. I understand it going into the playoffs, you're probably running with 9 max. When it's Doc, who knows, we could run 11. But right now, when you don't really know which way to go, when you're going matchup based, it does not have to be Niang or House tonight. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, and I agree with you.
I think what you saw last night from a defensive standpoint, the lineup of House, McDaniels, and Paul Reed. The athleticism, it's something the Sixers lack, man. Yeah. And you throw that out on the defensive end in transition, it's something to look for, right? So in a matchup like tonight, I don't think, you're right. I think Daniel House probably gets more of a nod because of the athleticism. Yeah. But it's not to say that George Niang has no role in tonight's game. If you need a bucket, if you need a shot, George Niang is normally your 7th man.
That's the other side of the or the other perspective for me as well. And it's like, we can't just let George Niang rot on the bench, right? Like, we
not
can't
when he's played 78% of the season so far.
Right. We can't just switch completely to House and just forget about
it.
George
Would make
Niang.
no sense.
And it's like what we talked about. I believe it was for Monday's game. It's only a matter of time before George Niang does get hot again.
Right.
So are you missing out on maybe that night where you get 4 threes from George Niang just because you're not giving him a shot at all?
Right.
Right. So
you know that you and I have stood up for Doc more than most over this course of the season, right?
Yeah.
But I will say that is the one thing that continues to bother me about Doc is there's no middle ground. It's complete opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of rotation, in terms of adjustments. There's no reason where George Niang is playing 17 to 25 minutes on a night-to-night basis, and he struggles shooting for 3 games, and now he can't see the floor, and you're blaming it on his defensive end. Now, don't get me wrong. George Niang is no defensive stopper by any stretch of the imagination. If we're being honest, it's because he's not shooting the ball well, Doc. Like, let's just get that out front. So you're going to take that 3-point threat, and because he hasn't shot the ball well in 3 games, be like, you know what, George? You have a seat. Daniel, I haven't played you, or Daniel, I haven't played you in 4.5 weeks. Go have at it.
Ready to get it in.
Come on, man.
I don't know. And then you also even have to ask yourself, like, why was Daniel House ever like removed from the lineup completely? Right? Like, that's the other end of the spectrum. So it's like, now is the same thing going to happen to George Niang for the next, 18 or so games, and then you'll just throw him into a playoff game like that.
Right, and can you?
That's what we can't do.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I missed it. Shake got a lot of run last night too, didn't he?
Shake, yeah, he was the
that's the part that doesn't correlate to me. Like, just because, so
why does Shake
get more I got run? You there.
Yeah.
Daniel House plays over 15 minutes. And Shake, who hasn't seen the floor for like more than 3 minutes per game over the last week, plays double-digit minutes. What is the correlation? And why did Shake ever stop? I don't need Shake Milton to play 18 minutes a night. You're telling me for a backup ball handler, there isn't a Shake Milton role for 8 to 10 minutes a night?
He played 21 minutes last night.
Like, what? How do you go from not playing him to 21 minutes? And then here's the best part, Scotty. They blow the heat out. Paul Reed, You know I'm not a Paul Reed guy. Paul Reed played out of his mind last night.
Yeah.
If they don't see the floor tonight, at least to start,
weird.
It makes no sense.
Yeah. Let Paul Reed build some steam, right? That was the best game we've seen since like the Detroit game against the Pistons, right? Where that game is just like, oh, it's the Detroit Pistons. That was the Miami Heat. That was Bam Adebayo. He was going up and down the court competing with. And you know how we've talked about Paul Reed, but it's because Paul Reed doesn't get the consistent opportunities to build upon these performances. He needs time tonight to build upon that performance last night. I'm sorry, I didn't even read the.
Oh no, you're good. He was just saying that there needs to be more balance when in terms of offense and defense, and it's always all or nothing with Doc. He's playing one guy for 22 minutes for offense, or he's playing one guy for 18 minutes for defense. There is no balance. There's no what we need, what it's looking like mid game. So that's one part that bothers me. Can I ask you a cool question before we get to like best bets and all? Listen, you and I didn't like the move. What did we sign Dwayne Dedmon for?
It's something I've asked.
He's still out.
He doesn't play. Like I've asked myself this every game that he doesn't play. Like we just filled a roster spot with somebody that can't play
for a position need like that.
You could have signed a 10-day contract and it would be done by the time Dedmon's available. And then
by the way,
were people lining up to sign Dedmon?
A couple days after you filled that roster spot with Dwayne Dedmon, Charles Bassey and Nerlens Noel were bought out. Now, I'm not sitting here. We've seen Charles Bassey before. No, Nerlens. I'm not sitting here saying they're the saviors. They are the perfect backup five that we need. They answer all the questions. Dwayne Dedmon has still not suited up for the Sixers. And even when he does, I'm less than enthused until I see otherwise.
Bro, I'll be completely honest with you. I would rather go out right now and like sign Goran Dragic than have Dwayne Dedmon sitting on my bench.
Oh, me too. Unfortunately, I did see the Milwaukee Bucks are front runners to sign Goran Dragic. So, of course.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, Goran Dragic, he's not a guy that's like going to change your fortunes from.
He could probably help a little bit though.
But he can score the rock, right? In the playoffs, you need a spark. He's a veteran. He has playoff experience.
Right.
But I mean, we don't need a guard. We don't need a guard. It would just been a nice ad, and definitely better than Dwayne Dedmon. I don't understand that at all. The last thing I wanted to ask before we do get into like predictions and whatnot, I get it. Jalen McDaniels is new, but like, when does he get like a proper run just to see, right? Like just to see consistently. 13 minutes last night. He gets less minutes than Daniel House.
Exactly. That's my point. So you're trying something different.
Yeah.
It's matchup based. You go from 0 minutes for House to more than the rotational guy that was already playing double digit. So my question would be, wouldn't the correct answer to that be McDaniels gets bumped up to 18, House plays 8 or 9, 10 minutes? So not McDaniels stays here and House leapfrogs everybody. How does that make sense?
The only thing that makes it make sense is this right here. It's because Daniel House is a veteran and McDaniels is untrustworthy in Doc's eyes.
Well, apparently Daniel House isn't very trustworthy either when Doc hasn't played him for a month.
So that doesn't make sense of what you can. That's what I would say, because it doesn't.
And I know I sound like I'm ripping Doc, and I'm on Doc's side as of late. Like
that was probably one of his better games.
They're 40-21. They have a top 5 record in the NBA. I'm not all on the hate Doc train and fire Doc train this moment, right? We know his time comes when they get to the second round, but just like this point is just what's funny to me, man. So I bring up this conversation. Yeah, I bring up this conversation of last night's game because that's something I'm paying attention to tonight.
Yeah.
What does his rotation look like tonight? And if his rotation changes strictly because Joel Embiid's back in the lineup, it makes no sense. There's no correlation to your center being out. Therefore, I'm going to play 3 guys at other positions I have not played in 2 months.
That was my last.
Doc Rivers tonight and seeing what he does.
That was my last key to victory. You hit the nail on the head there. Remain flexible with the lineups. We should still see a variation of lineups tonight, even with Embiid back in the rotation. And that even means try guys with Embiid as well, right? Like try other guys mixed in with Embiid. That's fine too. Daniel House and Embiid on the court together at the same time. Maybe a Jalen McDaniels on the court at the same time as Embiid, right? Try different things, remain flexible. That was my other key to victory tonight as well, because it just seems like Doc turns into like this upper level coach when Embiid's out, just like the team, right? Like, it's weird.
Because you know what it feels like? It feels like we're always adjusting, which is a crazy term for Doc because he doesn't do it so much, but it feels like we're always adjusting to what other teams are running. You have a team in the Dallas Mavericks tonight that are the worst rebounding team in the NBA. Why can't we try a lineup just to see that could take advantage of something like that? Why not? Why can't we have Joel Embiid, Jalen McDaniels, DeAnthony Melton, James Harden, and I don't know, and a Daniel House, and it's a buy. Like, why can't we get a 6'7", 6'8", and above front court to try to capitalize on the glass against them? We have to match up with what Dallas is running. If they go small, we're going to go small. Take advantage of it. If they go small, no one can stop you in the paint.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe you could try Paul Reed. He doesn't space the floor.
I was thinking about it. I was thinking about him at the floor.
It would be interesting because he rebounds hard, right?
Right.
You can get the offensive boards, but I don't know.
Right. If you did that with him at the 4 and Joel at the 5, I don't know if you're ever going to see the lineup. Then again, we saw Andre Drummond out there with Joel before. If you ran that on the floor, you'd have to put 3 shooters around them. Like, you would have to go Melton, Harden. Like, what about the Melton, Harden, Maxey, Paul Reed, Embiid?
Yeah.
I'm just throwing shit out there. I don't know if it works. I have no idea.
It's definitely something that could work at some point, right? That's just what we're saying. You got to be willing to try things, because we don't want to get to the postseason and look around the bench and Doc's like, we didn't try it during the regular season. I don't know if I can do that. Explore all options, then we know what we can and can't do once we get to the postseason. That should be the main goal here, man.
Yep. No, I agree with you, man. But with that being said, let's get into best bets and then predictions before we wrap this show up. Best bets for tonight, guys, in Dallas against the Mavs. Pretty simple. We're starting with Sixers money line. You're getting it at plus money at best bet Sixers money line, or take the 3.5. If you're giving me points and I think my team, I'll take the points all day. I'll take Sixers plus 3.5, but we do like the money line juice to plus 130, plus 140, wherever you get it on your books. Secondly, James Harden points, rebounds, assist combo. I believe the line was 37
and a half. The
37 and a half at minus 120. It's now minus 110 on DraftKings.
Oh, nice.
So James Harden, 38 or more points, rebounds, and assists. I think he's starting to find his groove. Obviously, we know he's always a threat for double-digit assists, anywhere from 4 or 5 plus rebounds, and hopefully he can get into the low to mid-20s tonight on the offensive end and cash that for you. Finally, Scotty, we are riding with Tyrese Maxey points. I believe they're 16 and a half. He's gone over 23 in the last 2 games. Obviously, we know he started last night. If Joel plays tonight, he's most likely coming off the bench, I would assume. Either way, Tyrese Maxey, we look for him to continue his stride. We mentioned at the beginning of the show, you get him on the floor.
Weird. They actually just boosted Maxey up to 19 and a half.
Maybe that might be because people are hammering it, but
yeah, that's probably what happened. It's over 19 and a half now at minus 105. So I don't know if can you tease it? Let me see.
I still like it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we need to see you still play like that with Embiid tonight, right? And I think he needs to see that within himself as well. So I do think it's one of those things, like we talked about at the beginning of the show. Who on this team is guarding Tyrese Maxey?
Yep.
Who? No, name him. I don't know. I don't see anybody on the roster. So, yeah.
With that
said,
like give me your prediction and star of the game for this one. Yeah.
So I'm going with the Sixers. As you could tell, we're going with the Sixers money line as a best bet. Like I said, this seems very odd that the Sixers are underdogs in this. I was wondering if I was missing something here. Even decided to ask Twitter about that if I'm missing something. I get it. Embiid's up in the air, but he's probable. He's not questionable. He's going to play tonight. I'm going with the Sixers win 120-107. This comes from my belief that the Dallas Mavericks are just not a good defensive team. I get it. They're number 12 in opponent points per game. I'm not buying into that too much at all. I still look at this team as a bottom half defensive team regardless. And at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself who's going to guard Maxey, who's going to guard Harden, who's going to guard Embiid.
Yeah, man.
That's the question. I don't see anybody in that roster that can guard any of those three. And then my go-to player, speaking of Tyrese Maxey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I've gone with him the last 2 games, so I'm riding it again for the 3rd time in a row.
Rest of the season, baby. I don't even got to ask you who the star of the game is the rest of the way. Tyrese Maxey.
That's my guy, man. You know that's my guy, but he's playing lights out right now. I expect him to keep it up. I'm expecting a 20-plus point performance. And he added in 7 assists last game, which speaks again to just playing without Embiid. Play like that with Embiid. You can do similar things, if not better things, with Embiid on the court. So I'm going with Maxey on this one.
I think the Sixers get a W tonight. And I called last night a big win for all those reasons, to kind of calm down the fan base, calm your team down, calm your front office down, calm everything down, right? 2-2 post All-Star break. If they win tonight and go 3-2 through these first 5, it doesn't. 3-2 never sounds pretty, but when you break it down and you look at this schedule and how they lost to Boston by 3 and how they lost to Miami by 2 and had a chance to win it at the end of both, how could you possibly be mad if they're 500 or above after these last 25 games with this schedule? That's great, right? So if you can get a win tonight in Dallas, you start this road trip. I know Milwaukee's coming up this weekend. This is a big one for me, man, because I think, again, we talked about the opportunity to gather the city's attention and respect at the same time. I don't think a lot of people respect the Sixers, man. And I think that's crazy for a team that's top 5 in the entire league. Forget the East. They're 3 in the East. They're top 5 across the league. I think it's time to earn a little bit more respect.
We've watched them beat some of the top teams in the NBA of late too. So there's honestly, it's weird. It really is odd, man.
Denver, Memphis, Miami, Cleveland.
Yeah.
They've already beaten Milwaukee this year.
That's just
like
the
only
last
team they have not
right?
beaten is Boston. That's it.
Exactly, man. And to your point, I think it is a big deal tonight that you do get this W, because Milwaukee, I do believe, is going to be much tougher on Saturday. That's going to be a very competitive game. You're going to be traveling to Milwaukee, so take advantage of Dallas tonight. They're a team that's 32-31. They're 4-6 in their last 10, 1-5 with Kyrie and Luka. Take advantage.
Yeah. No, 100% agree.
Who's your player of the game?
My star of the game, James Harden. I think he's slowly but surely taking command of this team with Joel on the floor and with Joel off the floor. I know he missed a great look at the end of the game against Miami. If he would have hit that, I'd be raving and ranting about him even more for that big win at the buzzer, right?
Yeah.
He's just a consistent, as of late, 22 and up scorer, 23, 24 points per game, it feels like. Anywhere from 8 to 11 assists, 5 to 7 rebounds, command of the offense. He's not turning the ball over too much. And what I love about him, man, he's getting to the rim. He's getting to the rim so much more efficiently and finishing in the paint so much more efficiently than the Harden we had in the postseason last year. That was the problem. Not only was he not shooting well from beyond in the postseason last year with that hamstring injury, he had no juice. He had no bounce. He could not beat guys off the dribble.
Yeah.
When you need a bucket, he did it against Boston. He did it against Memphis, and he did it against Miami the other night, even though they lost. He's getting to the rack and drawing contact when you need it most.
And he's playing with a fire as well. He just like you said, he has some juice in him this year. And it's really starting to come back around strong after this All-Star break as well. He's played really well since. I think he had one bad shooting night, but he still contributed in other areas. And that's
the Boston game. Boston, he was like 5 for 16.
Yeah, and he still contributed in that game heavily, right? He still had the assists, the rebounds. I love where Harden's at right now, and he's shooting the 3 ball the best in his career. So what else can we ask for? I know all the rumors with him going back to Houston right now. It is what it is. He wants to get his money at the end of this season. I get that. That's ultimately what that comes down to, in my opinion. And the way he's playing, he deserves it, man. He's playing at a high level right now.
That is definitely an all-season conversation.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we as Sixers fans cannot make that judgment until the end of the season, because if they are a first or second round exit again, something's got to get. It's not working, man. And as much as I want to keep James Harden, if they get bounced in the second round and he's not the reason, but he's also not scoring 20 plus, 25 plus a night.
Yeah.
So you got to change something. However, I will say I don't think that's the case. and I want to keep James Harden. So, James, if you care about winning and if you love the city, stay in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
With that being said, guys, that is going to wrap up this edition of DSM Pregame Live. Sixers Mavericks tip in just under 20 minutes or so. Don't forget to check out all of our content over at DSM_media on Twitter. Check out the link tree in our bio. Make sure you check out the YouTube channel where we do these pregame shows specifically. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications for whenever we go live, and have a great rest of your night. Go Sixers.
Go Sixers.